Hey friends, it's me, your girl Kristen Denise, also known as KD, and I'm coming to you today with another just general Black history fact. And I'm super excited about this one because this is something I learned about at random. This earlier this week, kind of just scrolling through videos on Facebook. I'll sometimes stop if it's like different television shows or something. So apparently there's like a new hospital emergency room show, whatever, that has Noah Wiley in it. And I fell in love with Noah Wiley years ago with the TV show ER that was on when I was a little girl. I used to love me a good hospital drama. At one point, I wanted to be like a hospital, like a medical doctor. And then I realized the sight of blood made me nauseous and other bodily fluids completely freaked me out. So that was not a path I had to take. It's probably where I'm part of, get a PhD. I could be another kind of doctor. Medical doctor wasn't it. But neither here nor there. So I came across this clip. Again, it was Noah Wiley acting. Hadn't seen him in a while. And I said, well, let me see what this is about. And in this clip, there's like a young Black man and his dad is sick or, in the emergency room. And he ends up in this conversation with Noah Wiley. And he's like, hey, was your dad like in medicine or something? And they mention this group, this organization called Freedom House. And they talked about on the show, they give a little snippet of what Freedom House was. And I was like, is this a real thing? Because it was something like Black history related. Absolutely. And I was like, is this a real thing? So let me look it up. Let me see what I can see. Because in the show, it was something to be honored. It was like, wow, your dad's a real hero. Like, that's amazing. And the older gentleman, he speaks about his experiences a little bit. And again, this is just like a little Facebook clip scrolling through Facebook. And I was like, well, let me do a little typing. Let me see what it is to see. Figure out what I can figure out. It's a real thing. And it's what I'm going to share about today. The Freedom House EMTs. So if you're like me and you've had an unfortunate event at a time or two, you may have had to ride in an EMT. I've had to ride in an EMT. Or an ambulance. I've had to ride in an ambulance, I think twice now. Not fun, but I've had to do it, right? And you know that they are very skilled medical professionals and they help save lives. My situations, fortunately, weren't overly extreme. I mean, I got services, I got to the emergency room, yada, yada, cool. But EMTs are life-changing, life-saving. And I know people whose lives have absolutely been saved as a result of being able to call an ambulance, having a well-trained EMT serve them, and, getting the care they needed in the time period they needed it in to get to the hospital and have their life saved, right? EMTs were invented by Black people. The first EMTs were Black people. Who knew? Right? So let's talk about it. So Freedom House Ambulance Service were the first, and they were the first Black EMTs, and they revolutionized emergency medicine. So the Freedom House Ambulance Service was the first emergency medical service, or EMS, in the United States that provided advanced pre-hospital care. And it was staffed primarily by Black men and women. And founded in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania in 1967, Freedom House pioneered modern emergency medical training and paramedic care, shaping the EMS system that we still rely on today. Okay? Today, right now. That system is built on the work of this majority Black men and women in the 1960s. Before Freedom House, ambulances were often just hearses driven by police officers with no medical training. And these Black paramedics from Freedom House became the first EMTs, or emergency medical technicians, saving countless lives, again, and revolutionizing emergency medicine. These unsung Black pioneers set the standard for modern paramedics, but their contributions have been erased for decades. That's so frustrating. Freedom House was created because, for the most part, prior to Freedom House, a true EMS was mostly non-existent. Ambulances were poorly equipped in the 1960s, and emergency response was often chaotic. Police officers, firefighters, and even funeral home personnel. I do not want funeral home personnel trying to help save my life because I just feel like you got a conflict of interest. Would transport patients without any medical training. And so heart attack and trauma victims typically died before even reaching the hospital because they had no medical training to serve them. So then you have the Pittsburgh Hill District, which was a poor Black community in Pittsburgh in the 1960s. They had high poverty, poor healthcare access, and slow ambulance response times. And Black residents often suffered and died because emergency services just altogether ignored their community. And so Freedom House was created to kind of fill this huge life-threatening gap. right? And so the visionaries behind Freedom House were Dr. Peter Safar, who was a white Austrian-American doctor who was also known as the father of CPR. So Dr. Safar was out here really doing God's work. And he believed ambulances needed trained emergency responders. He then teamed up with Philip Halen, who was the president of the Maurice Falk Medical Fund, and Reverend James McCoy, a local Black community leader, and they created the Freedom House Ambulance Services. So instead of relying on police or white-run services, they trained Black men and women from this neighborhood, the Hill neighborhood in Pittsburgh, to become the first real paramedics. Their mission was simple: save lives while empowering the Black community. You know, I'm all about that, right? I'm all about that. So they set the standard with their training for the first paramedics. Freedom House trainees received intensive medical education, far beyond what police or firefighters had at the time. And honestly, apparently far beyond what a lot of emergency room personnel even had. Okay, best of the best in class. They had CPR and advanced airway management, and they were first responders had never done this before them. They learned how to intubate, which is inserting breathing tubes, a revolutionary skill in pre-hospital care. IV therapy and drug administration, which was unheard of in ambulance care at the time. Defibrillation, which was using the electricity to restart the heart. Patient assessment and trauma care, which was essential for treating severe injuries. And they became more medically skilled than many emergency room doctors at the time. How amazing is that? So they had immediate success. Their EMS system actually really worked really well. The survival rate of Black and poor patients skyrocketed in Pittsburgh. Their ambulances responded twice as fast as police-driven ambulances, and doctors began relying on Freedom House paramedics because their medical skills were superior to most hospital staff at the time. And they proved that trained EMTs were essential to saving lives. So we're gonna pause for a cause just for a second and just shout out to Freedom House paramedics. Like, this was such dope history, and I'm really mad I'm just now learning about this. So in 1968, Dr. Safar presented the work and everything he was doing with Freedom House to the National Academy of Sciences, and then this led to national EMS training programs. Freedom House set the foundation for all modern paramedics. Their success inspired federal EMS legislation in the 1970s, shaping today's 911 emergency system. What? So the modern paramedic system literally exists because of what they did with Freedom House. How dope is that? However, because racism, still racisms. The city of Pittsburgh actually shut down Freedom House in 1975. Here's why. White politicians saw the success of Freedom House and they were bothered by it. They were severely bothered by it, and they said they were not going to let a Black-led organization control EMS. You wouldn't have EMS without this Black-led organization, but whatever. In 1975, Mayor Pete Flaherty defunded Freedom House and replaced it with a citywide ambulance system. Freedom House EMTs were also fired or denied jobs in the new system, even though they still had superior training. White EMTs took over, even though they had less training and experience, and their contributions were essentially erased from history for decades. Makes no sense. However, Freedom House still has an amazing legacy, which is why I had to share about it. Every paramedic and EMT in the United States follows the system that Freedom House created. CPR, intubation, IVs, and defibrillation in ambulances exist because of them, okay? Their fight for Black healthcare equity still inspires medical activists to this very day. They didn't just save lives in the 1960s, they have saved lives in perpetuity because we are still using the system they created. So what do we learn from Freedom House? What can we learn from them today? One, Black innovation consistently shapes modern technologies. I don't care what the field is. In this instance, modern medicine. So we have to honor and uplift Black pioneers in medicine and emergency care. And I think we need to share the Freedom House story broadly because there's no reason we don't know more about Freedom House based on its foundational impact on American society and culture. And we need to push for equity in healthcare still, for access in Black communities, because racism go racism. Inequity gonna inequity. And not talking about it ain't gonna change it. So I'm gonna say it. Black professionals need to consistently be recognized and respected. We need to demand recognition for Black professionals in every field and support Black-led medical and community health initiatives. Healthcare disparities still exist, so we need to keep fighting them and support policies that ensure equitable healthcare, access for Black and underserved communities, and advocate for diversity in medical professions and leadership roles. Final thoughts. Some black EMTs built EMS as we know it. Point blank, period. Nothing else to say about it. Freedom House proved that trained paramedics were essential to emergency care. They saved countless lives while fighting racial discrimination. Their work transformed EMS into what we know it to be today. Yet their names were erased. And it is absolutely time to reclaim their legacy. It is noted from a Freedom House paramedic as saying, we weren't just drivers, we were lifesavers. Ain't that something? Ain't that true? So, shout out to our sisters and brothers from Freedom House EMS Services. Thank you for what you did to revolutionize EMS services in the United States. And on behalf of everyone whose life has been irrevocably changed for the better, because we had trained paramedics and EMTs to serve us in our medical emergencies. Thank you. We honor your legacy and we will not let it die. We will speak your names. We will speak your service. We will honor your contributions. Okay? So that's all I got tonight. Do what you need to do to be more than okay, because you deserve to be more than okay. Absolutely do what you need to do to live a life you love, because you deserve to live a life you love. And do everything you can to leave your mark on this world. And even if people try to erase your contribution, know that consistent effort over time will change the world. Shout out to Freedom House EMS.